everyone. Welcome to our IG Live with Nikki from Kula Yoga. Just getting set up here. Hi, Nikki. Just gonna pin this and then invite Nikki to the conversation.
Hi.
Hi, Nikki.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I cannot
Amazing.
see
Oh,
you. I'm not sure why.
um, that's a bummer. Let me try this. Hold on. My camera says that I can see myself and you.
Interesting.
I know.
Yeah. Let me try inviting you and seeing if that changes anything.
Okay.
So I hit invite. How strange. Hmm. Yeah, I think you might have to leave and then rejoin after I
Okay.
invite you.
Okay. Let me just X out and I'll get out of the room and come back.
Okay.
Okay. Now can you see me?
No, and it says your video is turned on, so I'm not sure what the issue could be. So strange. I just hope that our viewers are able to see you, even though I cannot see you.
Um, can we ask them? Can we ask them if they can see
Yeah.
me?
Can we get for those of you who have joined our IG Live, are you able to see Nikki? Give a hand wave or drop a yes in the chat. The joys of technology.
I know. Oh, Tara said she can see me. Hi, Tara.
Oh, awesome. Well, then that's all we need. Just one yes.
Amazing.
So I have thankfully had the pleasure of chatting with you before, so I know what you look like, Nikki, and I'm glad that our viewers that are joining us today are able to see you as well. So I will kick it off by just introducing myself. My name is Danielle Johnson. I am the junior board president here with 3.5 Acres Yoga. If you're not familiar with all the amazing work that 3.5 Acres Yoga does, they work to bring yoga to nonprofit. They are a nonprofit that works to bring yoga to underserved communities. And so we're so grateful to be joined today by one of our amazing partners, Nikki, founder of Kula Yoga, here to have a conversation with us today about the upcoming event that we have on Sunday, October 15th.
Yep.
It's been a few weeks in the making, so very excited for the weekend to finally be upon us. So Nikki, would love to have you introduce yourself to the Thay community.
My name is Nikki Valella, and I am there's actually two of us, of the kind of co-pilots of the Kula Yoga community. I have been teaching since the early 2000s, and I originally was a student of Kula Yoga. I wasn't even a yoga teacher, I was an economics major studying math and banking and things not related to yoga. Um, and I really thought that the community at Kula, this sounds cliche because everybody says this, but really saved my life and helped me find my people in the city. And I wanted to create that for other people. So I eventually opened Kula Williamsburg in Brooklyn because I live in Brooklyn, and now we have a studio in Soho. Um, and I love my job. I love teaching, and I love kind of pushing the yoga community forward in a way that I think best serves our communities.
I love that so much. And I feel like that just speaks to the nature of life, that it's not a straight journey at all. It's not linear at all. There's a lot of changes and turns. I'm quite curious to know a little bit more about the leap from economics to yoga instructor. I feel like there has to be something that you've been able to utilize, at least running being a female-owned business has to have come into play, some economic skills.
Totally. I mean, I love math. Math is like my favorite end all be all. I love a spreadsheet, so I actually do use my Excel spreadsheet skills and sort of like payroll, QuickBooks type of things. I also do honestly really think of sequencing like an equation, like mathematics. That's how I really sort of see it. Like, 2 + 2 is going to equal 4. Um, but I originally did a yoga teacher training. I don't know why I did it, but I was studying economics and everybody wanted to work on Wall Street. And I did one internship at a bank and, kind of wanted to slit my wrists and, um, that was not my groove. I was like, I don't want to be in this environment. I don't, for so many reasons I won't totally get into, but that was just like not what I wanted to do with my life. And I ended up doing a yoga teacher training. I don't know. I was a student. I was obviously like very deeply in love with the practice and the community. Um, and I never, I started teaching actually when I was still in school. So when I got out of school, my schedule opened up and I could just teach more. Um, so anyways, I never worked at a bank or like really did the economics thing, which, much to my, not really to my parents' chagrin, but we always laugh because I did not choose the career that would make me a lot of money. That's for sure. But I really love what I do and they're proud of me and I'm proud of myself and of Kula. But yeah, so I do use certain things. I use it, literally to like do spreadsheets and run the numbers, um, to help me sort of see my path into sequencing. And then it also really inspired me to go and be a teacher and find something I loved because I knew I was doing something that I was good at, but I didn't love it. And
Mm.
in fact, kind of crushed my soul.
Yeah, and we want to avoid, especially in today's day and age, anything that's too soul crushing because life is very finite, as we know. And so thankful for you making that transition because that allows us to be here today having this conversation about this partnership that Kula Yoga and they are hosting on Sunday. Would love for you to share from your perspective why you said yes to this type of partnership. I know that this is something that Faye has been working really closely with in looking to partner more with yoga studios and the yoga community within New York metropolitan area. We do have partnerships in DC as well. But why the yes? We're thankful for it, but would love to hear that story.
So this is not actually about they, but somebody else asked me about hosting a class here, and this person had reached out to like all the yoga studios in the city. This was during Pride Week.
Mm.
And they had this vision for something that they wanted to do, and I had said yes, and that we would host them and do a thing. And later they told me that we were the only studio that even answered them and was kind of willing to like donate the space and do the thing. So it's not that I will say yes to everything. I don't say yes to everything, but I do want our space. I want it to be a community collaboration for people to come and be able to use the space to, do all sorts of things, like anything from what we're doing and sort of, promoting something very specific in the yoga community to like, we have we're calling it the Kula soiree, but it's like a poetry reading
Mm.
of one of our students and a musician, and they wanted to be able to actually have conversations with people in the community and not just show up and do yoga and then leave and go out the door. So I don't, I think people come to yoga not just to do asana. I mean, they're there to create connections and to build community, for the most part. Maybe not every single person, but for the most part. Um, and I think that's really important, and that's definitely part of my vision. As far as like specifically working with I think, the yoga world has changed a lot even since I came into it. Um, and when we spoke before, I mean, I'm very honest, I have not done any trauma-informed training. And I think that there is a need for, I mean, being in the seat of a teacher is you're juggling a lot. It's like you have no idea who's going to be in your room, um, and trying to hold the space for all different kinds of experiences and people. And if you don't, sort of like learn how to do that, you're going to stumble along and make a bunch of mistakes, which I've certainly
Mhm.
done. Um, and knowledge is power. I just think the more that you can kind of understand like with what you're working with and how to assist your students is really important. And it's not something that's in my wheelhouse. So when
Mhm.
someone comes to me and says, can we collaborate and introduce this, not only to your community, but to raise money and stuff in order to like train other people and make yoga accessible to people, that's really important to me.
Yeah, and I think that there is a beautiful quote in what you stated in learning to hold space for others while also expanding our knowledge, the knowledge that exists between creating community with other individuals. And so I feel like that is a topic that is interesting to me that I don't think is discussed enough. Is the intention behind building yoga community. I think that people sometimes get very comfortable in their spaces and they aren't necessarily interested in exploring new methods of yoga, practices of yoga. From your perspective, how does one get out of kind of that safety zone of saying, you know what, I don't know a lot about this, but I'm gonna allow myself to connect. I'm gonna allow myself to explore these other paths. Like what is, I guess, the best way of going about that? Because thankfully, like there are opportunities like they reaching out and the other partnership that you mentioned of individuals reaching out and trying to make those connections. But I would say for the individuals on the other side of like, well, maybe I am a business owner or maybe I'm a teacher and I would like to expand my partnerships and my knowledge, but where does one begin and how do I even begin to do that?
Yeah, I mean, there are so many layers and answers into that question. I mean, as far as I mean, when I think of yoga students, I think you have to like get out of your studio and go to other studios and different kinds of teachers. And we all, I always find New York so funny. It's like this huge city and everybody just does this, you have your pattern and you have your path and you just do your thing. You go to the same train, you go to your same studio, you go to your same grocery store, which can be lovely, but it's also of course a pattern. So I think you have to like just remove your like go on the other side of the street and like look up and you're just gonna see, like, oh wow, this is what it looks like over here on the other side of the street. I think that as far as like we talked about this a little bit, just changing the landscape of like your own studio. I mean, part of that is it's not part of it is of course like your teaching staff and people that you hire, but a big part of it also is making this space welcoming and open to people who are going to walk in that space and not feel like they belong. And that's where I think it's a big responsibility of the teacher to make that happen, because people are only going to come once, and if it's like if it's not a good experience and there's lots of things happening, they're not going to come back. So I think it's like creating a space where people feel that they can come in and practice their yoga. I mean, everybody's yoga is different, and it's everybody's there doing their own yoga. And if you can create a container where people feel comfortable doing that and safe doing that,
Mm-hmm.
um, I mean, from my perspective, the partnerships will come. I mean, it's like the like-minded people, whatever that means, like-minded in whatever they're trying to partner with. Um, I I know you have to make an effort, but I also think there's an organic growth there. You know, that
Yeah,
you're doing your mission, I'm doing my mission, and somehow we ended up, together doing this thing. And it's
yeah,
because we believe in promoting the same thing. So I think that part of it is partly an organic growth. And when
hmm,
people want to partner with me for things that are just kind of, um, I don't know, about brand promotion or raising, not raising money, but just kind of like about selling something, that's not interesting to me.
hmm, hmm.
Um, so
And
yeah, I
I
don't know if that answers your question, but
It does. I think that what I take away from it is that sometimes we overcomplicate it, the trying to figure out the best way to do it, and it really is just changing your pattern of behavior. And while you were speaking, some of the things that I wrote down is the landscape of your yoga studio feeling like an inviting place. Like I know for me, as a woman of color, plus size woman of color, you're not always I'm not always walking into spaces where there are other people who look like me. And so though the studio can't do anything about that, and I wouldn't expect them to want to only invite certain body types, certain ethnicities in, it really is just the space itself. And I can speak to your Soho studio, which I have attended, it is just very inviting.
yeah.
Um, the way that the light hits the studio, and
I'm gonna see
just
if I
the
can move us into the studio. Hold on. I think class just got out, and I wanna get out of this like badly lit room that I'm in and see if I
yeah,
can
I
go
know
to the
I
studio.
can't see you from the
I
other
know.
side. That
Hold on. Okay, here we are. We're going into the studio, everyone.
I hope that the viewers are enjoying this. I'm very jealous.
And I'm gonna turn on
Um,
the lights. I just couldn't come in here because we were having a class. Okay, anyways, here we are. Um,
and this is the Brooklyn studio space
no,
that
this is the Soho studio space.
we're in Soho?
Yeah,
Okay, because I can't see it. So I'm like, are we in Brooklyn or are we in Soho? Yes, so people get to see what I got to see that day. And it's gorgeous,
yeah.
absolutely gorgeous studio. So inviting. The energy is so warm. Everything just feels warm. It feels like a nice warm hug. And I know that the Brooklyn studio, though I haven't been there personally, feels exactly the same. So in the conversation that I had with Nikki a few weeks ago, I was asking her about the image that's on the flyer that the Instagram community, have likely seen in a variety of places. And I was like, oh, this is such a beautiful like garden space. Like I wonder where they found this sock image. And Nikki's like, no, that's our image.
That's the space.
That is the
Yeah,
space.
I mean, I've tried, forever to make the spaces inviting, but I just want to touch on something you said. As inviting as you make them, you also can, invite. Obviously, I'm like a white woman owning a studio. Invite people of color in, and it can still be like not that inviting. And I'm very aware of that. And I get that feedback, and it's something that I try really hard to shift. And we talked a little bit about this. It's like there's so many layers to it. It's like the people that work at the front desk, the other students, how you approach the space. We have like always had not always, but we started a scholarship program in our yoga teacher training program, and social justice is a big part of our program that I really strongly believe in. And I try to do as much as I can to make the studio warm and welcome for everybody, and it doesn't, and we fall short, and it's not a finite thing that's like, okay, we've done our job and it's welcoming. So that's just something that I'm always trying to work on, and it's a work in progress, but it's something that I care really deeply about, and will always make part of my mission.
Yeah, and I would love for you to share a bit more about the scholarship opportunities that you do have at Kula and what prompted you to start those scholarships.
I'm just very aware of my privilege, basically, and I always have been. I, grew up in a very kind of mixed demographic of where I went to school, and I just was always very aware of, that I was treated differently than people that didn't look like me or whatever. Um, so I, when we started our teacher training program, I mean, part of the only way in my mind that you are going to shift who's coming into your program, part of it is like, of course, yes, making a welcome space, but part of it is making resources available to people that are in the margins. And we originally started the scholarship program for our teacher training, um, because a woman who went through our program who had access to funds offered to help us fund a scholarship. And so,
Wow.
and so I know, I mean, incredible. And so we would interview people, um, and we never gave it to just one person. We tried to like find a mix of people that we could help support.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and sometimes it went really well, and like sometimes, there's always kind of like sticky moments for sure, because it's not, you can't just kind of like, okay, we're going to pull in people into the studio that don't look like me, or it's not that easy. I mean, you can't just like extract people from wherever in the city and say like come into Kula, and it's going to be all bread and butter and like super easy. So
Right.
it's been a growth process. And then I had a woman who was teaching, sorry, not a woman, I had a group of people who was teaching the social justice module years ago, and then one of our scholarship women took over the program, which was amazing. Like, she took over our social justice program, and she still teaches it, and she's just like incredible. It's kind of like her life's work to do this type of work. And it's messy. It's like really messy, hard work, and I absolutely love it. And I think it became sort of quote unquote easier or more in vogue when the Black Lives Matter movement was happening, and the Me Too movement was happening, and then it was like everybody wanted to have social justice in their program. So people were more open to it, it seemed, and it became like a little bit easier, but it's still like really hard work, and it's really messy, and I 100,000 billion million% believe in it. And anyway, that's our program. So I don't know. That's all I don't have much more to say about it, but that's how it started,
There's
and that's part of it.
Yeah, there's a lot that can be said, but I think what you speak to is the fact that Kula Yoga Project specifically has had this branch of inclusive yoga, diversity and inclusion yoga, social justice yoga that existed prior to the wave that we all know very well. And I know that even from Thay's perspective, in the teacher training that we actually just ran last weekend, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe 2 weeks ago now. One of the facilitators, Jamae, she works specifically in diversity and inclusion focused yoga. And Alex is an epigenetics researcher who also looks at the trauma that comes from social injustice that literally lives in our genetics.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot to say because there are so many branches of this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what is highlighted is I'm thankful that I've gotten to speak to individuals like you, like Alex and Jamae, have these Instagram lives and share just a piece of that. And for myself, be able to reflect back and see how all of those pieces are starting to shape even my understanding of how I want to move forward in my yoga journey. And the hope is that other individuals, as they hear this Instagram live, whether it be now or next year, start to create those pieces for themselves so that they can begin to build those spaces or see themselves in spaces that they didn't know existed because they don't want to feel like they're joining a bandwagon. And it's like, it's only a bandwagon if you make it to be.
Totally. And I just want to add one other piece. I do really think it's the job of the instructor in many ways, because I can put everybody through our teacher training program that comes to the teacher training program, but that doesn't mean that the students per se are on board with what we're trying to get on board with. And if you have a teacher who's trying to hold the space, but then there's like a bunch of microaggressions in the room, that doesn't really work. So I do think, and that's the reason I like doing partnerships and events like this, because it introduces also like the student body to, you know, whatever you're trying to like do in your studio and bring on board. And it's not just like the teacher, and even if you like get your desk staff involved, or you know, like those kinds of things, but it's like you really have to like get the community on board or it doesn't work. I mean, there's many more students in the room than just me. You know, it doesn't really matter. I mean, it matters what I'm doing, but it doesn't really matter what I'm doing in this sense if the whole community isn't really like creating this kind of space in the classroom for students.
Right. And this class that's happening on Sunday, this is your Sunday class that you run. Is it every Sunday?
It is.
Yeah. So
I teach every Sunday. Yeah, it's, you know, I would say most teachers that have been teaching as long as me, like, aren't really teaching on the weekends. You know, they're not like not teaching. They might teach at night sometimes, but like maybe not so much on the weekends. But I've taught, I used to teach Sunday at noon, and now I teach later in the day, but I've taught it since I literally started teaching in the early 2000s.
Wow.
And I just think it's important, you know, it's, again, so here's a great example. It's a total privilege to be able to go to yoga in the middle of the day. To say, I don't have a job, or, you know, not that you don't have a job, but like I have a job maybe that allows me to go in the middle of the day, or I don't have a job, you know, or I don't have to like go pick up my kids or whatever the thing is, but that you have time to go to the studio, take a class and go home. I mean, it's like 4 hours. That's a privilege to be able to even do that. So I just think it's important that there's, you know, that you can go, that there's time that if you want to take my class, you can come on the weekend. You know, I teach 1 weeknight a week, so that if you have, you know, obligations that take up your day, you know, and you're sort of like a 9 to 5 worker or whatever, you know, your jam is, that you can come at night. And I think coming at night is really hard, like to leave a job and come at night. I mean, I find it hard to like practice at night. So I just think it's nice to have a weekend thing that people can come to. And Williamsburg on the weekends is awesome. You know, it's like, and we do have the garden, and there's the sound meditation is after my class. So you can kind of come, I'm always there from 4 to 5:30, and then George teaches at 6 o'clock the sound meditation after. And it still is a lot of hours if you're going to do both of them, but at least it's on a weekend so that people who have more kind of consistent weekly work hours can participate.
Yeah, I love that. And it's for someone who may not be used to taking a 90-minute class, because I know for me personally, I'm working my way back up to an hour after some time away. What should they expect? How should they prepare? Should they be nervous for a 90-minute yoga class?
Absolutely. I'm a torture. No, it's a real slow burn. So it's Kula flow and pranayama. So it's the vinyasa based practice, which is, you know, a flow based practice, and pranayama is the breath work. I really mix the breath work in. It used to be like the vinyasa yoga class, and then we would just do 30 minutes of breath work, but I've started to format it more where I just work the breath work kind of in and out of the class throughout. So it's 90 minutes, but it's not at all. Kula flow is like a very slow, you know, breath-based practice. It's not like a power yoga class where you're, you know, you're working hard, but you're not doing, you know, like crazy things with your body, or, you know, I mean, you might feel like they're crazy, but it's not like a big kind of like do 1,000 push-ups and handstands. And it's a pretty open level class. I mean, there's lots of people who only come on the weekends, and then there's people who, you know, like bring their partner. It's like that sort of class. And then there's regulars. So it's a, you know, it's a strong class, but it's not anything like too crazy. And it's a good vibe. It's a really good vibe. And we'll do, you know, we'll do our vinyasa and our Kula flow, but we'll also do like a lot of breath work, and I make time to like rest and get on the floor. And I promise a restorative pose. I'll get a restorative pose in there. It's really hard for me because I always run out of time, and I never like fit in the stuff I want to do on the floor, but I will absolutely make time this Saturday.
I I know. I mean, we're already at our half an hour mark, and I feel like I have so many more questions that other people might have of like, what is Kula yoga? Like, what is breath work? And I feel like they're all conversations that I'd love to explore with you at a later date so that people can learn more about the various practices of yoga, Kula being one of those. But hopefully, they get their first taste of it on this Sunday at 4 p.m. And what's amazing is that this is a multi-tiered ticketed event. And so you can purchase a ticket to Nikki's 90-minute flow class, or you can purchase the next tier up, which will allow you entry to Nikki's class as well as George's sound bowl meditation class that runs from 6 to 7:30, which honestly sounds like a really great way to spend your Sunday if
It's
time
awesome.
permits.
It's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, because for people who might not be familiar with sound bowl meditation, is there anything that I know it's George's class, but anything that you can
Yeah,
share?
because I go every week. I love it. I scheduled it on purpose after my class so that I could go. Um, yes, he'll tell you this, but he very specifically doesn't really call it like sound healing or a sound bath, but a sound meditation. And he asks you, not that we all lay down. I mean, it's not like you have to like sit up and make it a seated meditation, but he really asks you to actively participate in meeting the sound.
Mhm.
And he also organizes it as this like let's say an experience between your weekend and your week, where he felt there was like lots of anxiety around, like Monday's coming and I have all these pressures of work and, sort of back to school or back to work and all of these things that I have to do in my adulting life. Um, and he's kind of created that space on Sunday nights to ease that transition, which I think is really important because basically half of our Sundays, like many people, spend getting anxious. It's one of our only days off, and like half of it is spent getting anxious about the next day.
Yeah,
Um,
Sunday
and
scaries.
he's yeah, the Sunday scaries, exactly. I think he actually calls it that. He's British. He's awesome. He's just like a really kind, lovely. He talks for 5 or 10 minutes in the beginning, and he's super smart and has intelligent, lovely things to say. And I could just listen to his voice for forever, and then he does magical instruments and you take a journey, and sometimes the journey, it's interesting, sometimes it's very blissful for people, and sometimes it's like more of a rough ride. It just depends on your experience and what you're going through, and but it's wonderful, and it's wonderful to do with the yoga if you have time.
Yeah, that sounds like such a wonderful experience, and I appreciate you even touching upon it so that those who are still on the fence about registering for both or just the yoga class will hopefully consider taking the yoga class as well as sound meditation. And then for those who are virtual, Nikki has also offered to run her class virtually for this event, and so there is also an opportunity to purchase a virtual ticket. And then last but not least, an amazing raffle where you can get all of these things plus amazing prizes that range from t-shirts, Laura, 3.5 Acres Yoga founder, newest book, some gift cards. There's just so many things. I can't even list them all. So if you have any interest, any questions, please click the link in 3.5 Acres Yoga bio. Nikki, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. Clearly, I would love to have an hour-long Instagram live with you because I just think that you have a lot of thoughtful things to say, and your journey in this space is one that I think likely resonates with a lot of people because, as I said at the beginning, life is not linear. And so just knowing that where you are now is not where you have to necessarily end up because of those divine partnerships that come up along the way. So thank you so much for sharing your story and your journey and your yoga studio space.
Yeah. Wait, so can you see me now?
No, I still can't see you. So this
Oh
whole
my God,
time
this
I've
is
just been
crazy.
looking.
I
I
really
know.
feel bad for like talking to a blank screen. I hate when people do that. Anyways, great job. It's so awkward to not see the person. Anyways, I can see you, so thank you for shepherding the call, and leave you a good conversation, and I look forward to Sunday.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you, Faye community. Have a great rest of your day.
Okay, bye.
Bye.